Welcome to the forum of the Race for Council, the beautiful village of the Harbor Islands. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters, my name is Maribel Baldwin. I am president of the Miami-Dade County chapter, and we are very happy to participate one more time in this very politically active small area of our county. So we're very pleased to be here, and we look forward to having an informative evening where the residents and those that will be voting next week can get a better idea of the candidates and their ideas, which is the purpose of this forum. As you know, this is not a debate. So therefore, the rules are a little different. There will be a question asked, and each candidate will answer that same question. If there are questions of a specific nature to a particular candidate, we will look at it and see if it can be made into a question that there will be an answer for everybody that everybody can address, rather than just have a question to one candidate, because then the timing will go off. So we will follow very simple rules. There will be a 3-minute introduction from each of the candidates, where they will tell us why they're running, their background, and why they think that they are the best person for the job. Then we will follow with questions, and they'll have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. We'll give you a warning. At the 1-minute warning, Sarah Hernandez from our board is here to be the timekeeper today. So she will flash a number 1 when so you have a 1 minute left, and then there's a stop sign, which means your time is up.
I thought she was a scorekeeper.
Pretty much too. We're going to see also at the end of like this. We're going to rating system also. She will really do that too. So if there are no questions from the candidates about the simple rules, I was going to go through introductions, but rather than using the time me talking, I'm just going to present you just your names, and then each one of you, I would like for you to go ahead and do the whole introduction better than me using the time for that. So we're going to be using the order in alphabetical order, so that it's easier for me to be able to make sure that I run it in a fair way. So we will have first Mr. Ken Eskin, and then Mrs. Doris Morano, then will be Isaac Salver, then Elizabeth Tercoche, and then Robert Daffy. And then as we start asking the question, we just change the order of who goes first. So we will start in that order. Mr. Eskin, you will be first in just doing your 3-minute introduction part of the program.
Okay, I thought you were going to be doing it, so I sent it to you.
I know.
My name is Ken Eskin. I'm living on the island for 35 years. I've been president of the homeowners of the West Island Homeowners Association. I was a member of the the Downtown Development Association. I was a member or participant in the visioning committee that we had many years ago. I've always tried to be involved anything and any place I can to help the town go forward. I've attended meetings for 20 years, always trying to put my input in. Sometimes the town accepted it, and sometimes they didn't, or should I say council. We've always tried to be proactive and help the town do what I thought would be the right thing. I just wanted to quickly, because I thought it's a little out of order, but I did want to read a quick statement. And I just want to get it out of the way. Last week I had a brief encounter with a potential voter in which I used an insensitive phrase when addressing her. I realized afterwards that my choice of words were insensitive. I immediately reached out to the party by phone and tried to right the wrong. As was suggested by a friend of hers, I also sent a note of apology. I have now been told by 2 independent parties that she has received my apology and moved on. In the political arena, it is not unusual for opponents to magnify a situation that does not rise to the occasion. I intend to represent all the people of Bay Harbor Islands, and don't want this to be a smokescreen for the opposition. And I will not be speaking on this further tonight. As I said, I've been living here. I am now semi-retired, so I have lots of time to spend to do the town's work. My daughter is grown, and all I have to do is worry about, I have no little kids at home, so I can have all the time to spend with the town and to help go further.
Okay, we still have 57 minutes, seconds left. Thank you so much. Okay, then we'll go next to Ms. Moran.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's great that you feel you want to be informed and who you choose. I've also been a resident here, a long-time resident for 23 years. I've been the treasurer of my condo association for over 15 years. I've volunteered my time on many of the committees. Back in 2005, I was on the first Design Review Committee, and later on the Environmental Impact Committee, and currently I'm the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee, which I've been on for at least 6 years now. And I hope that in the future I can work with Parks and Recreation and do a lot of projects that I have in mind. I do feel the reason I'm running is to improve the quality of life for everyone, not just mine, but everyone, and whether it's the elderly or the kids or just the residents, with more activities and more events, and hopefully, make a better Kane Concourse more vibrant. And that's about it. I hope you consider voting for me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Salva?
Yes, I thought you were going to, I was going to put introductory about my background, because I was ready for you to introduce me, like Ken said, but...
But it's up to you to tell us how much you want us to know. Some of them are very long, some of them are very short. I didn't want to be unfair in having to edit them, so I figured I would just give you the opportunity to say what it is you'd like to say.
Well, okay,
No pressure.
no pressure. Hello, everybody. I'm Isaac Salver. I've been serving the town of Bay Harbor Islands for 16 years as a town councilman. I spent 2 terms as mayor, 1 term as vice mayor. Parallel to that, I've been sitting on the Countywide Children's Trust for about 7 years, and for the last 4 of them, I've been the treasurer of the Children's Trust, which is a $100 million quasi-governmental organization that delivers about $100 million worth of services for children outside of school. I've served as the president of the Miami-Dade County League of Cities, of which I'm still active on the board of directors, and I have been since the year 2000. I'm on the executive board of the Florida League of Cities, which I've been active in since 2003. I hold a leadership position in that as well, where I am the chairman of the Florida Municipal Loan Council, which is actually one of the organizations that has a debt due to it from the town of Bay Harbor Islands. Now, I'm going to begin my comments now. I'm proud of what I've accomplished as your elected leader, and what I have accomplished is part of a wonderful team that we call our town council. During the past several years, the council has delivered to you, the residents, new parks, new programs for citizens of all ages, a new garage, an open toll plaza integrated with SunPass, an enhanced water meter system, and a rehabilitated sewer system. As part of the council, we've passed legislation to limit the height of new buildings, we've limited the density of new buildings, we've increased the setback of new buildings, and passed ordinances forcing developers to contribute their fair share of impact fees to our town coffers. We have instituted programs involving community policing, including bicycle patrols, boat patrols, and Segway patrols. This council and our devoted staff has dedicated time and assets towards our new license plate reader system, which is which is integrated and fully operational and has already assisted our fine police in solving several crimes and is a deterrent to bad guys that come across our causeway. As one of the senior members of this council, I have participated in 16 budget cycles. I've evaluated our financial statements for the last 16 years. I have read and analyzed our bridge engineering report 16 times, and I'm qualified to shepherd this town through a $12 million bridge renovation project that we'll all be living with for the next 18 months. During my tenure on the Bay Harbor Islands Council, I have gained the trust of my colleagues both in town and throughout Miami-Dade County. As I was elected president of the Miami-Dade County League of Cities, I have gained the trust of my colleagues statewide as well, where I serve in a leadership capacity with the Florida League of Cities and enjoy a close personal relationship with many of our key legislators. I have gained the trust of our police union, our firefighter union, and even the members of the local electrical workers union, who all support my reelection. Thank you. I know I'm out of time. I apologize, but didn't really...
No, you can let me finish.
I didn't budget for the...
I understand, that's why we allowed you to continue that.
Thank you. Yeah, but I
That's why we allowed that. Ms. Ricochet.
My name is Elizabeth Tricocci. I am Director of Account Management for a national medical billing company. We represent about 200 facilities across 17 states in the United States. My department is the forward-facing department, and we are responsible for the key performance indicators of every facility that we have, so the implementation, retention, and maximization of every account that we have. I did write a little something as an introduction. Through this process of running, I've been asked many times why I've chosen to do this. I've been criticized for my age, my lack of government experience, and for the length of time that I've lived in Bay Harbor Islands. But there are indelible truths to humanity, and what I am is greater than any criticism that's been laid before me. And who I am is the reason that I'm running. I'm a mother. I'm a mother to twin boys who go to school on this island. I'm a wife. I'm a wife who, in partnership with my husband, made a decision to make Bay Harbor Islands our home, to raise our children here, to put our roots down, to begin creating the tapestry of our children's understanding of what it is to be human, what it is to be a man, what it is to be a neighbor, and what it is to be a citizen. I'm a daughter, and I'm a daughter to a woman who set the standard high and told me that I could do anything that I worked hard for. She pushed me. She pushed me to look beyond any perceived limitations and create with my fellow man a better world for our children. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a businesswoman who seeks to create unity through all that I do. I help facilities outstretch their hands to help those in need by securing the necessary finances to do so. So why am I here? What do I stand for? I stand for educated decisions. I stand for representation of our community as it is. I stand for parks. I stand for the community center. I stand for the library. I stand for the work today that leaves the mark for tomorrow, that impacts this world for many years to come. I believe firmly that we don't create a better world for our children. We create better children for our world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricochet. Mr. Jaffe?
Thank you. Thank you all for being here this evening. I'm Robert Yaffe. I'm a 27-year resident of Bay Harbor Islands, and I am committed to maintaining quality of life in Bay Harbor Islands, and that's one of the reasons that I've run for council a good number of times already. I've been on the council for 20 years. My wife Jane is here. Together we've raised 3 children in this community. David, who's 27, Allison, who's 25, and Mark, who's 20 years old. All of them are either in graduate school or college, but, spend enough time visiting us here at home, and we certainly look forward to their visits here. I believe in community involvement and giving back to my community, and that's why I've served on the town council for 20 years now, and that's why I'm asking for one of your 3 votes next Tuesday so that I can continue to serve for another term. During my years on the town council, along with 21 other people that I've served with over the years, I've worked to increase parks and open space, the new 98th Street Park, the 92nd Street Park, renovate the Tot Lot, add 2 dog parks, revitalize and support the business district. I've been very active in the business community over the years. When I first started on the town council, I was the representative to what was then called the Bay Harbor Development Association, even though it was called Development, it meant Business Development, and worked with that association. I've worked to approve construction of our new community center, which I hope will start construction soon, to increase security with the license plate reader system, and to really well fund our police department and make sure that the police department has all of the equipment that they need. I've supported increased services for all segments of our community, and in particular, our children and our seniors. We have a lot of new programs over the years for members of our community. I've supported the Ruth K. Broad K-8 as well as other after-school and summer camp programs for our children. Back when I was first elected, I worked at the time with the then mayors of Surfside and Bal Harbor to start the after-school program for children. And for strict code compliance, I've worked with the administration and members of the town council who've traveled to Tallahassee on a number of occasions to obtain significant state grants for our bridge project, which, as Isaac said, started out as a $12 million project and may now be a $14 million project, and also money for our community center. It's important to me that we have citizen involvement in our community, and I've always encouraged members of our community to be on citizen committees, to come to council meetings, to speak their mind, encourage them to tell us what they think about what we on the council have been doing over the years, and I take that to heart, everything that people say. We don't always all agree with each other, but I think that the community input is very important for those of us on the council to make a decision. And as the mayor for the last couple of years, I've tried to bridge differences of opinion not only on the council but between members of the community, and try to reach workable, sensible compromises to make our town a better place. As I said, I am committed to Bay Harbor Islands, raising my family, and making this a better place to live.
Well, excuse me, can I get the balance of my time, since I didn't realize in the beginling you changed the notes?
Yeah, you said 57 seconds. We can add that on your first, sure.
Can I do that now?
Well, I would rather have you use it when your next question comes up.
Okay.
Because 57 seconds will be hard to, unless you think you can say something real quick in 57 seconds. I think it's easier if we add it to the 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay? Is that okay with everybody? Okay, thank you very much. So that was just basically introductions for give you the background and the reasons why you're here and you want to run. The first question that, which actually what I'm doing is asking the one that is asked the most. I'm putting together into one first. And we will start with Ms. Morano. But the question will be exactly, why do you see as the most important issue for the village? And how will you go about addressing it?
I think the most important is that there be a vision for this town, that we know where we're going and not just, one foot in front of the other. We have a plan. It doesn't seem that we have a plan. We're just building and knocking down buildings, that we should keep the character of the island here. How we do it is something that we should all look at. Citizens' involvement is important. Any ideas that, anyone has should be looked at. I do like the MIMO buildings, and I'm also for new development, and I think we just need to keep the character and the soul and the flavor of this town.
Okay, thank you very much. Same question, Mrs. Salver.
Yeah, I think our most important task as council members are maintaining the quality of life. In order to do that, we need to maintain a delicate balance of sustainability, which means sustainability of our tax base, while not allowing rampant overdevelopment. And it takes a lot of money to run a town like this. It takes a budget of $20 million a year, including our total enterprise, and we invest millions of dollars per year in our water system and our sewer system and other infrastructure projects. And in order to be able to sustain our walkways and our roads and our infrastructure, we need, we need a sustainable tax base. And I think, quality of life is probably the most important issue that we have to deal with on the city council.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kochi.
I think the special sense of community that drew everyone who lives here to here. I moved here, and I feel strongly that my neighbors and community members moved here because Bay Harbor Islands has always been special. It's important to me that we maintain our green spaces, we maintain our services for the elderly and for children, and that we invest in what makes this community special. And those are the reasons why I'm running and why I'm participating as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Timing is really well. You don't have to... Thank you. Mr. Yaffe.
Thank you. Well, I agree, it's quality of life, that's what this is all about. That's why I moved to Bay Harbor Islands, as I said, 27 years ago, and, I look back at some of my old campaign literature from prior campaigns, and I think that almost all the candidates have always talked about quality of life because that's why we're here. I mean, Bay Harbor Islands is really unique amongst all of the communities in Miami-Dade County and in South Florida. And in order to maintain that quality of life, we have to try to have reasonable, sensible development. I've worked to limit density, not only in specific projects, but to encourage more townhouses, to control transferable development rights and the number of TDRs that can be added to specific projects. We've worked to add parks, add landscaping, have an independent planning and zoning board, all these different steps to make our community better. And we have actually added a lot of services over the years since I've been on the council, as I said before, for children, for seniors. Once we get that community center open, which I'm really excited about, I think it'll be great because we can have additional services. And, it's also about listening to the citizens of this town, the people who live here or work here and so forth. The council meeting the other night, a lot of people have come up with great ideas, rodent control, no demolition and no construction on Saturdays and so forth. And we heard you, we listened to you, and we're working on those ordinances. So I think that all goes to the quality of life that we enjoy here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Eskin, and you will have that additional time now.
Well, quality of life is certainly an important scenario, but sometimes it's quality of life for whom. I would plan to emphasize the importance of our senior population. I would like to see if we could form seniors committees to come up with ideas which seniors actually want. Part of this could be a group of people, including teens, who would be willing to call once or twice a week to check on the elderly, which is a substantial number in this town. Soon we'll have a community center, which I believe we should be working on plans now how to best use the center. I have heard ideas from bridge games to art classes to Spanish language classes. Computers classes that we do have now, I think should be free to residents, not the $80 charge that we charge now. Years ago, we had activities where neighbors actually met their neighbors. I think they called it the Bay Harbor Club years ago. I'd like to revive that in some way. When we had the Homeowners Association, actually we did those. We had different parties at different times, either in one another's houses or we had it in the old Johnson and Wales. I would like to see family-oriented programs. Unfortunately, we're so transient now, in some cases, we don't even know who our next-door neighbors are. I would like to see better communication between the town and its citizens. In fact, going around, some of the seniors told me that they don't use the bus because they're not sure where the bus goes. Well, that's a lack of communication. Somebody should make sure that these people really know where the bus goes and that the bus works for the seniors. While we now have the 911 alert, where the town calls the citizens and if there's an emergency, it often takes too long. We recently had a problem with the bridge was up. I think it was 2 weeks ago on a Saturday. But it took an hour for the calls to go out. I happen to have been one that got stuck. I came all the way down from Aventura, got stuck and had to go all the way back again. Something everybody should take care of now. The town now has the ability to call you on your cell phone. So please call the town and register your cell phone. I've spoken to many people who have asked for a waterfront park, when and if we can afford it, but it would also be a good attribute because it could be used for a boat ramp for our police to use it for our boat. Having to do with some of the building, I would like to see tops of screens put up on the side of buildings. I haven't heard anybody discuss it. When they're blowing cement up on the 6th floor, 7th floor, that cement on a windy day will blow all over. I'd like to see them put the tops up and protect our vehicles and protect our property. That's something that's never come up.
Thank you, Mr. Akin. The time is up.
One last thing.
So one quick thing.
Ken Eskin received the endorsement from the Police Benevolent Association.
Thank you very
That
much.
didn't get out. Thank you.
Thanks. Can we start with Mr. Sauer now, number one? A lot of questions have to do with, obviously, development, construction, how many construction projects are out there. One of the cards mentions 27 currently under construction projects. And that there has been statements made by the candidates having to do with you're all in favor of controlled, reasonable development. This citizen wants to know, what does that mean exactly? And as a council person, would you then be supporting legislation that will limit in some way, and there's mention that there is legislation presently proposed that will limit construction or development, or tying it to population growth. There's some sort of connection that needs to be made with it too. So, given that, first of all, what does controlled reasonable development mean?
If the question takes more than 2 minutes to ask, how long do we have to answer it?
No, because I have 2 minutes, and I'm taking less than 2 minutes, because I want to make sure that, because there was too many things written, and I wanted to do it in one question. So, and I'm so sorry that you did not agree with my one, but that...
No.
So let's keep it all time. I'm not doing time. I'm in time. I'm not doing time, so I can... Here's the question specifically. It has been, all the candidates, according to the resident, have been quoted saying, we support controlled, reasonable development. They want to know what that means. And based on what that means, would you be, as a council person, in favor of legislation that somehow makes that controlled, reasonable development happen?
First of all, I think in the time, actually, that Bob and I sat on the council, we've created legislation that could be considered controlled, reasonable development. I fought long and hard with the Bay Harbor Islands Coalition to limit the height of buildings to no more than 75 feet, where when I first got on the council, it was 150 feet. Regarding density, the population of Bay Harbor Islands was set in stone I'm not sure when the original comprehensive plan was written, but the comprehensive plan that I've analyzed and that we've renewed for, over the past 15 years said that there's a density limit of 34 units per acre, and that has not changed. So the population, largely, of Bay Harbor Islands has not changed, nor will it change in the future. Controlled development, this very council that we sit on right now has limited height, has controlled density in our regulations relating to TDRs. We've increased setback limits. We've increased demand for open green space, and we've increased developer fee impact fees. So I think we've done a very good job. And just to correct the record, there are only 8 projects that have open construction permits as we speak. 8, and I can give you the addresses, I have them right here.
No, and the reason why I said there were numerous, and that's so, one of the cars mentioned the number 20, I didn't want to use the 27 as the question.
Right.
But, okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Then, Ms. Tricoche, same question, what does that mean, and do you think that legislation is maybe necessary to accomplish what the meaning of controlled reasonable development?
For me, what I think controlled and reasonable development is a sense that allows Bay Harbor Islands to stay up with the times, to maintain our quality of life, because as we know, there are a number of buildings that were on site here, or that still are, that needed to be brought up to a healthy code, that needed to have some sort of refurbishment. I think that adding certain development allows for some revitalization. It allows us to bring in the type of people that we all moved here to be with. And that's what I think controlled is. I think that it is, we have to be able to support it. We have to be able to educate those children and maintain our beautiful crime rate and be able to stay the wonderful community that we are. Let's see. Would I support legislature that controlled reasonable development? Well, as Mr. Silver said, there is legislature. There are controls that are in place. And yes, I do think that if necessary, I would support it.
New legislation?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's what the question was, whether there was a need for new legislation.
If there is a need, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Jeffrey.
Yes, thank you.
Where am I getting so confused today? Sorry about people. Thank you.
Well, controlled reasonable development, I think you're seeing some of that now by the legislation that passed on first reading at the council meeting the other night, limiting hours of construction, no construction on Saturdays, no demolition on Saturdays, controlling, the construction work sites. I mean, part of it's a reaction to what's going on at the picnic last week on Sunday. People ask me, well, can we limit the number of projects which are being built at any one time? And the answer is no, because, there's their property rights. People who own property are allowed to develop their property as long as they comply with the legislation that's on the books and they comply with the zoning code and so forth. So unfortunately, the town can't say only 5 projects are going to be working at any one time, but recognizing the amount of demolition that has occurred in town and the number of projects that are under review, we have to do the best that we can to make sure that, again, the quality of life of the residents is protected. And I want to see less density. I'd like to see more townhouse projects, particularly in the interior of the island, instead of the larger 5, 6, 7-story buildings, because I think that's better for quality of life. And in terms of supporting legislation, yes. I mean, again, it's sort of reactive. We see what has occurred over the years. I mean, many years ago, as Isaac said, when there were 15-story buildings, the citizens came out. They organized a petition drive. They got enough citizen signatures to put a referendum on the ballot, which was passed overwhelmingly by the residents to bring building heights down to 75 feet. The council, of course, accepted that and endorsed that and enacted legislation to put that into effect. And I would say, over the years, have done everything that we can to react and control development to the best of our ability as legislators, so that the residents are protected as best as they can be. I mean, we've even gone so far, years ago to litigate the issue and brought lawsuits against developers and defended lawsuits by developers to make sure that the wishes of the residents in the town of Bay Harbor Island are what were paramount, and not the developers' wishes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Raskin, same question.
Well, I believe I would like to find a way to incentivize developers to continue and go ahead and build more 3-story townhouses. I would like larger units, more expensive units, which would bring additional tax revenue to the town. I would like to raise the price of TDRs once again. The town shouldn't be the least expensive place to buy the TDRs. I think if we can slow down the sale of the TDRs, perhaps we can slow, if they're not as readily available, perhaps we can slow down some of the construction. I would also like to make sure that all DERM permits are actually in hand before a developer starts demolition on a property. We've seen time after time that they've gone ahead and demolished a building, and then weeks later they're coming into town hall with their permits. I want to slow them down at every turn wherever we can. Unfortunately, after Wednesday's decision, I'm afraid that there's going to be a rush now to demolish anything they can because they're afraid of historic preservation. And that's not my position. That's the position of what the developers are going to see as happening in this town.
Thank you very much. On that same, and the issue of development and construction, and since you brought up the historic preservation issue, there is one question, and we'll start this time with Mr. Salva.
No, you only started with me last time.
Your Doris, I'm sorry.
She didn't answer the last question.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I was moving forward. I was speed forward. So, the question would be, I'm sorry, Doris.
I think that was about new legislation for overdevelopment.
Well, what do you mean by, if you have been one of the candidates have been quoted as saying that you do support control reasonable development, and then do you believe that there should be new legislation that addresses whatever is meant by control reasonable development?
I believe the controlled development I'm speaking of is when there's 3 demolitions in one area, which affects the citizens who are asthmatic, the children walking to school. This is the kind of legislation where we should not have a concentrated demolition area. And I think that's something we can control. The other thing is the construction on only one side of an island, rather than you have to be able to, again, control the air, the traffic, the noise on that one particular side, and that's what was kind of happening, where it's all on East Bay Harbor Drive rather than spread throughout the town, and I think there should be some kind of a control on it. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. On the issue of new legislation, do you think that there is a need for additional legislation to what the town currently has?
Yeah, I don't think they're allowing them,
Okay.
3 demolitions and 4 demolitions in one area within a blocks, and
Okay.
it's a problem.
So we got, okay, great, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to the next question. Sorry about that. Now we're starting with Ms. Chicochi. And I go back...
Elizabeth, it's so much easier.
I know, I've been trying to say it in 2 different ways. I put the accent in a different vowel every time I say it. It's a beautiful name, though.
Thank you.
Just to stay on the same topic, though, on the issue of historic preservation and the values and things, I'm going to read exactly the way the question was written for this one. If efforts continue to preserve old buildings, how can we encourage owners to improve their property and prevent further deterioration in our town? So I guess it has to do with the whole historic preservation push, whether or not that's what we want to do with our properties, and if so, if that's what happens, then what can be done to make sure that the owners of those buildings prevent further deterioration of those buildings?
I think part of the reality is that we have a responsibility in being a community member and a homeowner to keep up our property. It's like the old saying, you dress for the job that you want. You make the community that you want, and part of the way that you do that is the way that you present your community. And that's a portion of that. I know that this question's going to come up. I am for preservation, but I'm for preservation when the owners want it. And I don't think that we can step in front of what a majority of owners want for their own homes and tell them that we think that we know better. I also think that there is a middle ground, and it's something that we haven't necessarily... We've seen But in some of the circumstances which have created some of the most reactive and most emotional responses, there doesn't seem to be a middle ground. It's either one way or completely the other. And I also think that that is not part of a reasonable life, but it's not part of reasonable politics either. So I do think that both sides are part of maintaining our community and what makes it special, and I think that responsibility ultimately falls on each of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Gaffney?
Thank you. I think historic preservation is a matter of fairness. The way that the county has gone about it has demonstrated a lack of fairness. We, as a community, as a town council, we are not in charge of historic preservation. We have no right to control historic preservation. Our county commissioner, Sally Heyman, introduced legislation in the countywide to attempt to give communities such as Bay Harbor Islands the opportunity to opt out of the county system so that we could have our own historic preservation board. That got no traction at all with the fellow county commissioners. And so, again, we are subject to the county process. Because the county didn't reach out to Bay Harbor Islands until very recently, they only had a historic preservation workshop on March 31st, there was a great deal of uncertainty in this community as to what properties would be subject to historic preservation, whether the entire East Island would be declared a historic district or only certain buildings. And a lot of property owners reacted to that by demolishing their properties. I agree, and I'm a community association attorney, that, condo associations, co-ops are little democratic societies, and to terminate a condominium, you need 80% approval of the unit owners. So to permit one or two people to make an application and control the lives of all of the other members of that association, I don't think is fair. And I think there has to be some regulation of that so that the property owners are involved in the process of historic preservation. And I think that if the board were to work with property owners, that they would be far more successful in preserving some of the properties that deserve to be preserved and that the owners want to preserve. I mean, if you look at what's going on in Surfside at the old surf club, most of that was knocked down, but they preserved the core of that property and are including that within this new project that's going forward. And I think it's going to be great at the end, and I think that could happen in Bay Harbor Islands if the Historic Preservation Board reaches out to property owners and works with property owners.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So true.
Mr. Erskine?
I think part of the problem is that the town has been lax in its inspection process. By not having enough code enforcement people, we have one code enforcement people, we have 3 times the amount of building that we had 1 and 2 years ago. We have allowed many buildings to fall into disrepair with the owners not having enough finances to fix the properties. I would push for at least one more code person to be hired and another building inspector. When these buildings fall into repair, they allow, or they give the opportunity for developers to come in and grab up the buildings, because many buildings are coming up on their 40-year inspection, and they can't pass them. Some of the buildings have cost up to $1 million to put back in repair. They don't have the money to do it. So it allows the builders, the developers to come in and gobble up the buildings. I also happen to believe, and I've written previously, as far as historic preservation, I believe in it. As long as the people in the building, and if as Bob says, their number is 80% or 70%, if that's what their code docs, their docs say, that it takes, if you will, to buy out a tenant or to hire a new manager at 75%, well, then it should be the same 75% needed to vote for historic preservation. Again, I agree, it's America, we believe in property rights. If anybody wants it, if that building votes on it, go for it. I believe it's fine, it's very nice, but I don't think 3 people should be able to would make the decision for an entire building.
Thank you very much. Ms. Moreno?
I do believe that the town should work with the buildings. There is a 40-year inspection that, should be upheld and should be enforced. There has been a lack of code enforcement, and the buildings are way past their 40-year inspection, which causes the the buildings to deteriorate quicker and causes them to cost more when you do come in to refurbish them. I know there was a PACE program here with windows and financing, and I think that the town should encourage updating the buildings if the people want to continue living there and not sell to developers. And I think the town plays a big part in that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Salvo?
Yes, thank you. The debate about historic preservation is not a new topic. In 2006, while I was on the town council commissioned a study at the request of the citizens to perform a historic preservation inventory. I'm sure you remember Mayor Zilber, and it was performed by Jared Tuck, I believe, who is a renowned preservationist. And, you know, I wasn't that surprised to see his results, which showed that the majority of the buildings would not even qualify for historic preservation. And there were actually two properties that he said would qualify according to the multiple criteria for historic preservation. And they were uniquely, one was the home of Shepherd Broad, our founder, on the West Island. And I believe the other one was a commercial property on Kane Concourse. I think historic preservation is a wonderful thing, and I think it worked on Ocean Drive very, very well. If you go through the center of Miami Beach, however, the result is a little bit different. There's kind of a mishmash of, you know, historic buildings and new buildings, and I think that, you know, that portion of Miami Beach is more reflective of what is going on here. There are beautiful buildings in Bay Harbor Island, because I myself sponsored what we called May is MIMO Month, and the council's participation in it. We had tours of our MIMO properties, and it was a lot of fun. There was a Girl Scout that led, you know, the tours, and there are many, many beautiful buildings, a few of which I believe would be qualified to preserve, but it's a very, very delicate topic when you discuss property rights, and I think property rights really trump all.
Thank you very much. That will wrap up that area of the construction and the historic preservation part of the questions. We're going to start now with Mr. Yaffe, and there are questions about shade, the canopy, the tree canopy for the island, especially the East Island, that there's more construction going on in this part of the island, and how would you make sure that the city ends up with a tree canopy that will provide shade and beauty, actually, at the end of the day, for their town?
I think there's a couple of components to that. First of all, one of the aspects of the redevelopment is positive in terms of shade and landscaping on the East Island, because the new projects must have all of their parking on site. So the property line that will actually come out to the swale, where now there's parking. So there'll be increased green space. We have very strict landscape requirements in our code, I think, which exceed the county requirements, I believe. And so hopefully, as new projects come to completion, there will be additional landscaping. I believe Councilmember Fuller had an item on the agenda the other night, I'm not sure if we reached it, it got late, to evaluate the landscaping on the East Island, particularly on the landscape corners, and maybe take another look at that. I'd like to see, of course, more trees and more shade on the East Island. I think one of the reasons there are not as many trees as perhaps we would like to see is that when we were planning the Community Enhancements Project quite a number of years ago, we reached out to the residents of the East Island with respect to trees and landscaping, and said, you know, every time we put in a tree over here, you may be losing parking spaces. And there is, I wouldn't say a shortage, but, we're very concerned about parking on the East Island and all over town, and so the citizens said, listen, we would rather have our parking and not as many trees. I think is really what it came down to. They didn't put as many bulb outs on the East Island as we have on the West Island, and so there aren't as many trees. But certainly I would like to see more trees. I think shade is important. It's great for when you're out walking. It's beautification of the community. I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Eskin.
Well, I would like to hire landscape architects to tell us where we are lacking and suggest the correct types of trees. They put trees in the top lot, but those trees won't have shade probably for another 10 years. In fact, going back to when we did the visioning charrette, one of the items we spoke about was landscape beautification. Again, we did it on the West Island, but the East Island did and still looks like it's forgotten. There's got to be ways to get around it, even though we're talking about the parking, I understand that, but there's still areas where trees can be put in. One of our residents came before us and brought to us word about the million tree project, and I think we should try and take advantage of that in whatever way possible. The trees are out there. We just have to find a way to pick the right ones and get them installed.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Brown?
I think green is one of the most important things here, which we don't have. There is a lack of green spaces, a lack of trees. I mean, it's just the whole quality of life feel that is lacking on this island. If we can find places for FPL poles or other things, I'm sure we can find some spaces for some trees. And on the new development, they're required to put in landscaping, but they're not putting in trees that are canopy. They're putting in small palms, which will not give a shade and which does not give you the feeling of being on a tree-lined street walking down the road. That's what we need.
Thank you. Mr. Sauer?
Thank you. We're met with certain challenges, and, I agree with Doris in that we are a little bit green challenged, but the reality is we're an urban community. Our streets, and when I mean streets, I mean our roads, are incredibly wide. Everybody knows that. They're actually, if you compare Bay Harbor Islands to Coral Gables, Coral Gables has one lane in each direction, which is probably 12 feet. We have one lane in each direction, which are probably 20 feet each. That poses a challenge. Another challenge that we have is FPL. 3 words that have plagued my 20-something years living on this island. Because, believe me, when somebody on the East Island waves a fan, palm fronds fall on my power lines. And I think I have probably the more power outages than most third-world countries. One of the things the council and staff can improve is choosing trees and the location of trees. I believe in the greening of America. This council has joined Keep America Beautiful recently, and I supported that wholeheartedly. And I think it's important that the council adopts new ideas regarding how to make Bay Harbor more green.
Thank you. Mr. Kochi?
I think the canopy is very important. I was sitting here thinking about some of the ways that we can compromise. One of the reasons that we bought here on the island was the green space. It was the backyard on our island that we loved. And it's interesting because they're developing right next to us. And we've started conversations, we've attempted to have conversations, let me rephrase that, with the developer about maybe taking some of those trees and putting them on our lot if they're not going to keep them. And I think that there are compromises that we can make, and there are things that we have to understand and try to do to maintain that. And I think that that's an important part of what we do. But yeah, we have to have the green spaces here.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll start this question now with Mr. Eskin. We're going to stay on East Island, and the question has to do with flooding. What can be done to minimize East Island flooding, especially near the school along West Bay Harbor Drive? And is sea level rise a consideration that the town is including in future planning?
Well, as far as the flooding at that location, and which is kind of shameful after we spent millions and millions of dollars, and it seems we have as much flooding now as we did prior to all the work, and that happens on both islands. As far as that one particular site, I understand there was conversation about building, they had to get a right-of-way from one of the buildings which was given, and they were going to build a pump to go from the sewer, which is closest to by the school, and go across the street through a driveway and pump the water out into the canal. So I understand that's under, they're looking at doing that right now. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Whether sea level rise should be a consideration in
Sea level
development.
rise should absolutely be a consideration. In fact, one of the things I was going to talk about was that I would like to see the town consider allowing new construction on the West Island and townhouses on the East Island, the option of raising the base flood elevation level, or somewhere between 1 and 3 feet. Now, they'd have to, change some of the rules that we have. But I think we should start being proactive instead of reactive afterwards. I think that would be very, very important. They're doing that now on Miami Beach. They're doing it elsewhere. And yes, I think Bay Harbor should absolutely get involved with that now.
Thank you. Ms. Morano?
I do believe we should be proactive. I don't know what we can do since we are 9 feet above sea level, so below sea level. Hopefully, it's years and years away from us, but unfortunately, I do believe we should be looking at it now and being proactive.
Thank you very much. Do you want to comment on the flooding on the East Island by the school? What can be done to minimize the East Island flooding, especially near the school along West Bay Harbor Drive?
I would believe cleaning out the sewer lines and everything more often than we do now.
Okay.
And making sure that nothing is being thrown down them.
Thank you. Mr. Sauer?
Again, we're a little bit challenged here because we're a barrier island, and not only are we a barrier island, we're a man-made island. These were mangroves in the past. And one of the corrections I'd like to make, Mrs. Morano talked about sewers. The sewers solely control effluent, and the town has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in making sure that stormwater does not intrude into our sewer system, because we pay for sewage. What she is referring to is our stormwater drainage system, which has, although we replaced much of it throughout the East and West Island, there are still locations that are prone to flooding. We're limited, the role that the government could play in controlling that flooding is limited because many of the stormwater drainage pipes run through private property, and it would basically require tailing up private property along several lines to create more stormwater drainage. Although I'm not a scientist, I know that Miami Beach along Alton Road had severe flooding problems, which they have proposed a multi-million-dollar project to alleviate on some level. I think Bay Harbor Islands really should keep a close eye on the mitigation that they're doing and improvements they're doing to their stormwater drainage to prevent flooding and employ some of those techniques here.
Thank you. Mr. Koshy?
In terms of what we can do for the flooding, I think that is something that an engineer needs to tell us. I am not an engineer. I do read well, though, and I do listen well, and I think we have to take the educated advice of people who know what to do. That's really all I have.
And whether a sea level rise should be a consideration on for future development.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yaffe?
Thank you. Well, as Isaac said, we live on islands. There's only so much you can do to control the flooding. We did spend a lot of money in infrastructure years ago, and I think in many areas it's better, but there are some areas which are still difficult. We need to keep the storm drains clean. Our personnel go out there when there are, rainstorms, heavy rainstorms, and try to clean them out to make sure that they're clear so the water can drain. But understand that at certain times of the day, the month, and so forth, the water levels that surround the islands rise up, and there's nowhere for the water to go when it's trying to get off the island, because the water level around the islands is higher, than our outfalls, so to speak. But all of our new construction is required to be at least at base flood elevation. The older home, like the house I live in, the older properties they're below base flood elevation. I'm on the Miami-Dade County Board of Rules and Appeals, and we had a meeting today, and one of the items of discussion was, I think, a new code coming into effect, or a change in the Florida Building Code, which may require new construction to start at 1 foot above base flood elevation. And I know that in town, our building department is encouraging that as well, I believe. So, that's part of what we're doing what's really mandated, but what we're doing to take care of and to anticipate sea level rise. We also require seawalls to be built higher. We had a discussion about that on Monday night at the council meeting, about, that on portions of the island facing the bay, the sea walls are so low that the water just, comes in when it's windy and during storms and so forth, then they should be higher. So we're looking for higher sea walls, higher properties, being built above base flood elevation. And sure, we have to be proactive, and we have to be aware, and we need our, council members and staff members to attend conferences on sea level rise and to be proactive and work with other communities in the county to anticipate what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to continue in this line of questioning. There's some questions about the fact that it is very difficult for if children in the town decided to actually walk to school or bike to school, that would be an impossibility, really, because of traffic being so horrid. At times when children are leaving for school or leaving school, would you have any suggestions as to how to make that happen, where actually children in Bay Harbor Island could ride their bike or walk to school, or could be there plans for a shuttle to actually bus children within the island? I believe that Palmetto Bay has such a program where they actually have their own buses taking their children to their own schools within their city. So we wanted to see whether this would be something that would be a consideration for you as coming in to the council now. And this question starts with Ms. Miranda.
I think it's a great idea. What I would like to see is more physical activity, though, rather than a bus, and maybe have more crossing guards around the island so that the kids could ride their razors, and that even the town, if they could provide them with razors, which this way they could, that's like the skateboard kind of,
The scooter.
And if we could educate the children to be more familiar with walking, riding your bike, skateboarding, using your razor to get to school, it would help relieve a lot of the traffic congestion. But we need the people to oversee it.
Thank you. Mrs. Salva?
Can you just repeat the question?
The citizen wants to see how children in town will have an opportunity to actually walk or bike to school, or that not being a possibility, would there be plans to have like a shuttle supported by the state, and I think that's used with the transit money in some areas, where they can actually pick up the children within the city and take them to their schools, since it's such great luck at that time to be taking children to school.
I would certainly support, if it was feasible, to provide additional transportation to our local Bay Harbor children, to ease traffic in the morning. It's a pretty big undertaking, considering Ruth K. Broad K through 8 has different start times for different classes. If someone could come up with a plan to employ our shuttle bus to take kids in the early morning hours to school, I would support it. Anything to make life a little bit easier for citizens and ease traffic on the roads during rush hour, I would definitely support.
Thank you. Mr. Kutcher.
One of the things I love about here is walking around. And my first thought was volunteer parents. Ask parents to volunteer one morning a week, and take a corner and watch kids and help them pass, the corner. As parents, we love doing things like that, and it's a great way to, again, instill the sense of community and keep that neighborhood vibe that we have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rafi?
Well, what you said about the Palmetto Bay program is very interesting, and I would, hope that I will mention it to our town manager and ask him to speak to his counterpart in Palmetto Bay, to provide the council with some additional information or some information about that to see how that program works. It's interesting, but every day when I leave to go to work, I see a lot of kids in the neighborhood walking to school. They're biking, they've got their, as you say, the razors and scooters and so forth. A lot of them are walking to school with their parents. The parents are on bikes or also on scooters and so forth. And so, we all have to supervise our kids, and my youngest son went to Ruth K. Broad. When he got to a certain age, we let him walk with his friends, ride his bike and so forth. So part of it is just the vigilance of the parents. We do have a great crossing guard program. Our police are very protective of the children. They're out on all the street corners. They've got their, radar guns and so forth, trying to keep traffic as slow as possible. And, it's working as well as it can, but, we always have to be very protective of our children.
Thank you. Ms. Raskin?
Well, I happen to like the idea of kids getting up in the morning and going for a walk. It's stimulating, walk or a ride if they take their bike. I see people going by every morning past my front window. In some cases, the kids alone. Some cases, the parents enjoy going for that walk with the kids to school. I wouldn't be adverse to the bus, but I don't know if that would be the best usage. I mean, if that's what everybody wants to do, I think it would wind up being more cumbersome, because all you're going to have again is more traffic. A lot of that traffic seems to come from outside town, so you have a lot of that traffic. But I think if we had although the cops are there, but we're going to have more and more traffic. So at every one of the construction sites, I would look to put an additional cop or an additional police or a crossing guard there to make sure that the kids are safe. But I think one of the reasons people come here is they enjoy the opportunity that it's a safe area and the kids can actually walk to school.
Okay, thank you. There are a few questions regarding the structure of the government and how, so I'm going to try to break them down. There's a few, so I want to make sure that I ask all of that residents wanted to ask. One is, I'm going to start this time with Mrs. Sauber. So I'm going to just give you two questions in this time, and then we'll break it down later. One, are you in favor of term limits? Would you support term limits? And two, would you support changing the charters where the mayor is actually elected rather than chosen by the council? So those are the two separate questions.
In the past, with my work on the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee, I actually supported a recommendation from the committee to the council for term limits. So I have supported term limits in the past. And, I mean, if it's something that the people, either the people or the council wants to do, I would probably vote for term limits, actually. The idea of an elective mayor, I think is also a very good idea. And if the people or the council thought that, that would be best for the town, I would support an elected mayor as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chikoshy?
I concur with Mr. Salver. I think that if that's what the people want, absolutely yes to both.
To term limit and electing Mr. Yaffe?
I agree. It's up to the people of Bay Harbor Islands. I was the one who instituted the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee back in, I guess, 2005 or thereabouts, and we had a lot of discussions about all aspects of our town government. When the election should be held, whether we should have direct elections, whether we should have term limits and so forth. Recommendations were brought to the town council. We completely rewrote the charter, and we left it as it was in terms of not having term limits and not having direct election of mayor and vice mayor. I mean, I will say again, if that's what the residents want, that's what they should have. On the other hand, I would also, point out that we're approaching our 70th anniversary here as a town. We have a unique system of government that has worked well for, 65, almost 70 years. So, again, but we're in a democratic society, whatever the residents want.
Mr. Askin?
I would definitely support term limits. I would even commit to a term limit. I absolutely support a mayoral election. But I must say, I find it interesting that everyone here is agreeing with term limits, but when Paul brought it before council a couple of months ago, nobody supported it, making it an issue. So I find that kind of humorous. But I, for one, would definitely consider vote for term limits and a mayoral election.
Thank you. Ms. Morano?
Put it on a ballot. And I think also, there was something that Mr. Yaffe, that I had forgotten, besides the term limits and the mayor, was the holding the elections when we have our other elections. I don't know why. I'm sure it's more of a cost for us to run an election in April. We might as well run them all at the same time, save the money. But put it on the ballot.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was an easy one. While we're in the topic of the council, the next question will be, and we'll start with Ms. Chikoshy. Do you believe that the council should receive a salary or medical insurance benefits? Or medical insurance benefits? Changing it from the $1 that it is these days.
No, I think it's a service position, and it needs to be maintained as a service position.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yaffe?
I think the $1 a year that we get is enough compensation. Again, that's been the tradition in town, that we do this as a matter of public service. It's not a full-time position. It's not a salaried position. And I think that's fine. And I think that's all it should be.
Okay, Mr. Askin?
Well, even though it's been brought up twice by people on the council that there should be salary or medical, I am vehemently against it. I would not vote for that. I already figured out all the different ways I might spend my dollar.
Thank you.
In donating it.
Thank you. Ms. Morano?
I agree. I believe there should be more volunteers and everything in the committees, on the council, and anyone who wants to volunteer their time. It's a civil servant position, and I'm always happy to volunteer.
Thank you. Mr. Salver?
Honestly, I think the town should consider getting more in line with towns that are equivalent to ours across the county, across the state, and across the country. I think we're one of the very rare towns that neither provide a salary nor health insurance. Just right across the waterway from us, about the town of Bell Harbor, the village of Bell Harbor, does have like a stipend of a salary and health insurance. So it's something that, I think is worthy of looking at and possibly updating.
Thank you. Just have one more question having to do with structure, or this is really subjective, I think, a little bit, but I'm not from here. But this resident believes that there's 6 of the 7 council members live on the West Island. That represents 85% of the council. In fact, 85% of the population lives on the East Island. Why do you think that this happens, and why is there not more of a general representation from both sides of the island? Subjective, I think, but I want to make sure I get inside your mask.
Who goes first?
But why do you think, I'm sorry, we'll start with Mr. Yaffe, that's why I was looking at you. But why do we feel that maybe, what do we need to do so that we have candidates from both sides?
Look, I feel I've always represented all of the citizens of the town of Bay Harbor Islands, regardless of where they live. We've had years when we've had, 3 council members from the East Island and 4 from the West Island, and it's been the other way around. We had a couple of council members who lived on the East Island, one who resigned. Jordan moved to the West Island. I mean, I don't look at it as the East Island versus the West Island. We're one community. The Charter and Ordinance Review Committee a number of years ago looked at the issue of should there be districts. One from each of the 4 quadrants of the island, and then perhaps 2 at large, and that didn't get any traction because I think the members of the council and the members of the committee at the time recognized, again, that we represent all of the citizens of this island. It's not a very large community. There's only about 5,500 of us, and, geographically, we're a very small town. We want to keep it that way, and I think, 7 at-large members works.
Thank you. Ms. Raskin.
I believe when we commit to this position, we're committing for all of the people of the island. I don't look at it east or west. I look at how do we benefit the people of the island. Of course, nothing stops more people from the East Island from running. But I, for one, again, look out for the entire population. I do not look one side or the other. That's my commitment.
Thank you. Ms. Morano?
It's funny, as I was making phone calls for people to vote for me, that question came up quite a bit. Are you from the East Island or are you from the West Island? And there are quite a few people in this town that do separate the two. But I am definitely here for Bay Harbor Islands, and doesn't really matter, I think, if we have 4 on the west or 2 on the east or 3 on the east. I think if they're up here and they're volunteering their time, they're there for all of us, or they should be.
Thank you. Mrs. Salva?
Well, I sat on councils with the majority of East Islanders, and I've sat on the council with the majority of West Islanders. Again, my son was recently elected in November to the Bell Harbor Village Council, and I'm very proud of him. And with that, I mentioned that for a couple of reasons. One is because Bell Harbor Village is broken up into districts. And, working on his election and going through his voter roll, I think it is important for each district to have a representative, because each district has its unique qualities and its unique challenges. And I would even go beyond my opinion that I think we should have districts, because I would support districts. My personal opinion is that the council should be only 5 people, not 7. And the way the districts should be broken up is 2 from each side of the West Island, 2 from each side of the East Island, and the mayor should be voted at large. And just like in Bell Harbor, all people vote for all the seats, and I think it should only be 5 people.
That was an additional twist. Thank you very much. Mr. Coach.
I think it's an interesting question. It makes me think about, they did a study many years ago where they followed 2 separate families. One of them was a family where the parents, had problems with substance abuse and they were in prison, and then the other one was an educator. And they followed them for 500 years. And what they found was, did you read it too? No. What they found was, what they found was that there was replication throughout the generations. So as you had a model behavior, that model behavior was replicated down. And I think it's one of those things where when you have some people that are thinking about, how they're going to keep food on their table and how they're going to take care of their families, they're not thinking about running for government. And when you have people that are able to step back and were taught to be open-minded about things, then they'll suddenly become opportunities for them. I can't speak to why one island with particular to another would do that, but I think it's a very intriguing question.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought it was interesting, yes. We have many questions, so we hope to get to all of them. And we now Mr. Askin. This one is specific to what would you like to see on King Concord or King Concord?
King Concord.
King Concord? To restore it to its former glory. What would you consider to get that done?
Well, when I first moved here, we had many art shops. In fact, they used to have art shows on, I think it was on Friday nights, we used to have art shows, and people used to walk through town. And I thought that was beautiful. I'd like to see more restaurants. I'd like to see, when we did the visioning committee, I was one of the ones that I pushed to have no professionals on the first floor. No doctors, no real estate developers, put all of them up on the second floor and just have, because our street still dies sometimes at night. You go into Surfside, it's booming, there's cars there are people, because they have lots of restaurants. People have complained that we make it difficult for the restaurants to open, but I have also heard that of late we've tried to make the process much easier for people to open businesses. I would like to see, as I said, more restaurants, more family-oriented, different types of stores for the street. As a realtor, I even went to Las Vegas years ago when we had the Development Association to try and bring people back here, to try and bring retail stores. As a realtor, I went to the ICSC, which was the International Council of Shopping Centers, and that you had every major store or a minor store in the country there, and we tried bringing them back. At that time, we had troubles because there wasn't enough parking. Now we have added some of the parking, but I understand that parking lot gets full. But nevertheless, I'd like to see more restaurants and more art stores open up again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown?
I'd like to see some more unique stores. Restaurants are great and wonderful, but we need more of a traffic on the King Concourse. Some mom and pop shops, some, that varied things that people need, whether it's phone stores or computer stores, something to bring the traffic into the city.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Salvo?
A while back, I read some old minutes from a council meeting, I think it was in the late 70s, where the council was debating about allowing Saks Fifth Avenue in the 1005 property. And they went back and forth, and they actually ruled against it. They said, we don't want Saks here, it's going to cause too much traffic, it's going to, we can't accommodate a retail operation like that. They ended up going to Bal Harbor shops, and the rest is kind of history. I've always been supportive and committed to the rehabilitation of King Concourse. I would say about, up to about 6 or 7 years ago when the real estate market crashed, the town council was spending $4,000 a month, $2,000 on a publicist and $2,000 on an economic development specialist. They did studies, they did announcements, they did everything they could to bring business to King Concourse. When the market crashed, we pulled the plug on pretty much both of them, and we had to go with volunteer organizations. We didn't have a lot of luck with that, but in my opinion, yes, like Ken said, I'd like to see a lot more restaurants, a lot more boutiques on King Concourse, but I believe firmly that it will evolve into proper, maybe not Bell Harbor Shops or Aventura Mall, but more like a Rodeo Drive. And that's the vision I have for King Concourse.
Thank you. Mr. Case.
I like King Concourse the way it is. I can't lie. I like being able to go and walk with my children whatever day of the week I want and go and have dinner. I think it would be great to maybe have a space where, you could take a class if you wanted to on art, or you could, do some things that we like to do that would allow us to have a sense of community, but also, allow for a little bit of a special niche for us.
Thank you, Mr. Yaffe.
Sure. Thank you. As I said in the opening statement, when I first started on the council, I attended all of the Development Association meetings, and I think it was really important at that time that the businesses on King Concourse organized amongst themselves, had regular meetings, and they held events, and that was very beneficial for the town. As Isaac said, the town funded, the economic development specialist and the publicist, and also we even paid for a website for the business community before that association sort of became defunct. We have supported restaurants on King Concourse. We liberalized parking requirements for restaurants on the ground floor. At the council meeting on Monday night, we approved an application for what I think will be a tapas and bar on King Concourse, which I think is great. We've liberalized the sign code to make it easier for businesses to put up signs. We've limited the amount of professional space that can be on King Concourse. So we've really worked with the business community over the years as much as possible and been very responsive to them. We redid King Concourse, got rid of those old slippery tiles, put in pavers, we did landscaping and so forth. So, I think it's evolving over time. Businesses come and go, but whatever the council can do to support the community, I think is very important.
Mr. Eskin.
Thought I answered that.
You already did. Sorry, you're going to be... Sorry. Next one. While we're talking about, so you mentioned signage. I did have one on signage, and now we start with Ms. Morano. What do you believe is the best solution for signage on the causeway for entering Bag Harbor? Signage issues at the entrance of the causeway, Ms. Morano.
I think we should get some ideas from everyone, whether it's design people, students, from the citizens, and get some ideas first before, I would have no idea right now what to say, but I do, through Parks and Recreation, I do plan on doing projects over on the causeway, but as far as signage goes, that's something that we need to look at and get some help with.
Okay, Mrs. Saldo?
Yeah, I think signage is very, very important. Actually, within the past year, our town manager, Ron Lawson, brought a model of a very cool, Jetson sign that said, broad causeway wrapped around it. And I loved it. I loved everything about it, except the price tag. Because I think the project was about $500,000 project, and I just really can't see dropping $500,000 of taxpayers' money on a sign that welcomes people to Bay Harbor Islands. But I think a signage is very, very important, especially where the toll plaza used to sit. And I think we should have a robust sign that reflects the character of Bay Harbor Islands as people enter through the causeway, and I think it's very, very important.
Thank you. Mr. Koch?
I agree. I like the idea of the sign when you come in where the toll plaza used to be. It's perfect. I was just thinking, maybe we could have a contest, or maybe we could have something where, we pose it to the people of Bay Harbor Islands, or we get, we open it even to local colleges and design schools and ask them, design it for us. Tell us what you think is special that people need to know when they first come to Bay Harbor Islands.
Thank you. Mr. Jaffe?
Well, a competition is interesting because our town flag was designed as a result of a competition by, I think, art schools or universities and so forth, and I think we adopted that before I got on the council, and I think it was in 1995. The sign the entrance sign that Isaac referred to was very interesting looking. It's quite large, but what we need to see is a model, and I think that whoever created that sign has actually, I think, done sort of a 3D type of image, which we can see on video to get a better idea of what that would look like. But beyond a welcome to Bay Harbor Island sign, I think we also need a permanent electronic sign, something that would be very tasteful, of course, that advertises, events in town, because right now we have those portable electronic signs, which, first of all, take up parking spaces, but also pretty ugly. And if we had a permanent sign, I think that would be great. When I was driving this afternoon, I was coming through Miami Shores, and they have a sign on the main street heading towards Biscayne Boulevard, which I thought was good. Not necessarily what it looks like. I think we can, get a cool design and make it very interesting. But it is important to have that type of signage, and maybe we could have it at both ends of the town, so that as people are coming into the town from either end, they can see the current events that are going on, whether it's a council meeting or the movies on the green or the story time at the park, whatever is going on that particular day, so that residents are more aware of.
Thank you. Mr. Ekin?
Personally, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the signs that we had previously. However, I also would like to have a contest at different design schools, perhaps offering a scholarship for the most unique, or for the sign that we like. And I would like to have it sing, also both coming and going, that people would be able to see. Coming into town, I agree with Bob, I would like to have a scroll or something similar to that they have in Aventura, where it changes, and every time there's another function, it's about a 4x6 sign, and it changes, and it tells whatever's going on that week. In they happen to have it for the cultural center, but I think it would be very good for the town. So I would like to see that also.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to have a couple more questions, and you will have an opportunity to do a closing once we finish. But there was a question, a couple of them, regarding Bar Harbor Shops. How are we going to work with Bar Harbor Shops regarding the expansion of the shops and the increase in traffic?
What extension? I'm on the council, I don't know of any extension.
Regarding the expansion, this was a question, I didn't make that up. There's no expansion of the word. I thought they were moving to Midtown.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
I saw a couple of them.
Women would have a heart attack if you heard that.
So this is not a question necessarily?
It is a question. It is a relevant question.
Who would you like to answer?
And we start with Mrs. Salver. Sorry.
Okay. You just repeat the question?
How are we going to work with Bar Harbor Shops regarding the expansion of the shops and the increased traffic?
Right, well, like my son said, right now there is no expansion. There's talk of expansion, there are meetings about expansion, there's discussion on expansion. There are workshops and seminars on expansion of the Bell Harbor Shops, but right now there is no approved project for the expansion of the Bell Harbor Shops. I know I did get an email today that the Whitman Group are reaching out to our council to discuss the possibilities of expanding the Bell Harbor Shops. And I have had the opportunity to study most of the plans that they are presenting, and quite frankly, they're daunting. The statistics show that they are proposing to literally double the square footage of the mall. They're proposing to rearrange some properties that I actually think are historic properties, and several other things that they're proposing that I would, if I was sitting on the Bal Harbour City Council, I would probably vote against. They do propose specific solutions for traffic, they're proposing maybe putting an underground garage and extra turning lanes and things like that, but I think that any plans that ultimately do get approved by their village council should be way, way, way less than what they're presenting.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Koshy?
I think traffic is an issue. It's an issue right now, and it's going to continue to be an issue as the development continues. And it's something we have to be very thoughtful of. In terms of a solution, again, I think it's something that we have to work collaboratively on, talk to the town about, talk to, engineers about, and see what our options are.
Thank you. Mr. Yaffe?
I think a major concern, if an expansion project goes forward, and we don't know whether it will or not, is traffic and the construction vehicles, and I would want to speak with the representatives of the mall as well as officials in Bal Harbour and Surfside about controlling that traffic. Even now, when a large construction vehicle goes rumbling down King Concourse, if you're sitting out there, having a cup of coffee or something or having a meal, it can be disturbing. So if there are lines of those vehicles going along King Concourse, it's not going to be good. The owners of the shops have reached out to members of the council here to have meetings to talk about it. I did attend a meeting, as did some of the other members of the town council. I think it was at the Seaview a number of months ago, where certain expansion plans were exhibited, so to speak, and there was a discussion about it. But where it'll go, I don't know. One of the good things about our three communities is that the mayors meet every so often. We had a mayor's meeting earlier this week. There really wasn't even any discussion at that point about the Bal Harbour shops, because apparently there's just not a lot of activity. And I know that the Bal Harbour Village Council has a list of they have their own wish list and demands that they would like to have the shops comply with and provide certain things for them. So whether that will ever, come to fruition, I don't know at this point. But again, traffic control, if a project does go forward, is a major concern.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eskin?
Well, I also went to two of the expansion meetings from Bal Harbour, and I sat and listened for hours. I think Bal Harbour shops are a definite asset to the entire area. I think in some way the success of Bal Harbour has added to the price increases in Bay Harbor of our properties. I was traveling Europe last year, and any place you went, I told them that people ask where you come from, you tell them Bay Harbor, they don't have a clue. I said, we're right across the street from Bal Harbour shops. Oh, I love Bal Harbour shops. Any place you go in the world, people know Bal Harbour shops. I hope that they can get a way to get some of their plans approved. I know there is a lot of concern about traffic. I think that there was a traffic study being done. I don't know if it was completed ultimately or not, but I'm sure if there's a will, if there's a way to get something worked out, they can do it. I would not like to see the better shops move out of Bal Harbour and move to Midtown, which is what's happening. One of the best stores they have, which was a Louis Vuitton store, moved out because there was no room for expansion. I have family that they want to come down to us just so they can go over to Bal Harbour shops. So it's a definite asset.
Thank you very much. Ms. Morano?
I think those shops should come on over here. I'd love a Louis Vuitton in here in Bal Harbour. Bring some people in who can go sit in our restaurants and have a cappuccino. It sounds like there's going to be some kind of expansion over in Bal Harbour. And I think there's a few things that we do have to watch out, and the church bells is one thing. I understand that they're going to be moving closer to Bay Harbor, and I know I already hear them at 9 o'clock Saturday and Sunday morning for 5 minutes, and on the hour every hour, and 5 minutes at noon, and 5 minutes at 3, and every hour. And as they move closer to Bay Harbor, They're going to be right across the canal from us. Not only that, if there's restaurants in the Bell Harbor shops, and at night, and as it's closer to us, it could affect our quality of life, just so that the council makes sure that they look at all aspects of that expansion.
Okay, thank you very much. There's one question on development, and on development, and that will be, Mr. Koshy, the first to respond. Are you for or against development of the Broad Causeway?
In what fashion?
It's just a straight for or against. I guess you will have to elaborate. The question is just not.
Yeah, my question kind of stands in what fashion?
Okay.
It's a very open-ended question.
May I add to that? I mean, it's not my question, of course, but my guess is...
You're the next person to it, so she...
No, I was just going to say, I think the question pertains to whether there should be development out on the causeway where the toll plaza used to be. I think
The 1600 block.
Right. I think that's what the question is asking.
Okay. Does that clarify for
Maintain our
you?
safety, and I think we have to maintain our capability to cross that waterway, but that has to be mitigated.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Yaffe?
My answer is no, I'm not in favor of developing what we now is officially called the Shepherd Broad Causeway rather than the Broad Causeway.
Okay.
I love the open space out there, I love the views coming and going to the town. I think leave it open. That's one of the benefits of getting rid of the toll plaza is that we have great views out there and it's beautiful coming back and forth across the causeway.
Mr. Eskin?
I always loved the going over the causeway. In fact, when we first moved here from New York, I used to drive with the top down on my yellow convertible that I still have, and I used to say to my wife, "Can you believe they actually pay us to live here?" The causeway area is beautiful. I would not build anything out there. I would landscape it beautifully, and then I would leave it just like that.
Thank you. Ms. Morano?
Well, on Parks and Recreation, I've already proposed a project for out there of art sculptures and things, and that should be part of our living space. There should be no development out there. That we should be able to go out there and just look at the art, look at the beautiful view, and enjoy it. And we really don't seem to... It's very difficult with the bridge the way it is, the walkways over it, and we should try and find some way to be able to walk over that safely and enjoy that piece of property.
Thank you. And this can be the last question.
I didn't get to answer that.
I'm sorry. Why do I, it's just with you. When you're the last
No, it's not just
somehow,
I think
I skip you.
You should equally skip each one of us one, please.
It's just fair. And I had it, and I highlighted some history. Sorry, Mrs.
See, you should have introduced us. That's where, first of all, people, oftentimes they criticize Bay Harbor Islands because of a lack of green space. And I guess they reconcile that in their minds without including the 1600 block of Bay Harbor Islands, which is the Causeway Islands. And that largely contributes to the green space that we have and really brings us closer into compliance with the amount of green space that we have. Now, I've had eggs thrown at me for saying what I'm going to say next. And that's, in my opinion, the place where the gasoline station stands, which actually is another possibly historic building, in my opinion, shouldn't be a gas station, because that land is too beautiful, too valuable to really be a gas station. In my opinion, I think we should eliminate that gas station, but not necessarily eliminate the building. Make the building possibly into the town hall or a museum or something that the community will not, stop and pump their gas at, but somewhere where the community can go and really enjoy the richness, the views, and the history of Bay Harbor Island. As far as developing any of that property, I would absolutely not support developing that property. But I would support the recommendations from the Park and Recreations Committee to have possibly sculptures and things like that out there. I don't know if I would support a lot of pedestrian activity, but some, maybe large pieces of art, like love sculpture and other sorts of sculpture that you can drive by and enjoy.
Thank you very much. This question is to do with, it's a personal question for everybody. It goes, how does your educational and professional background prepare you for working to make our community better? And do you have the time commitment, or you have the available time to commit to the service of being a council member, since there seems to be absences on our council on a regular basis? So the question would be, do you have the ability to make the commitment of time that is required, and just as your professional background and educational background, how does that prepare you to be a council working to make the community better? And we'll start with Mr. Yaffe.
Well, I'm an attorney, been practicing for almost 30 years in South Florida. I graduated from Vassar College with a joint degree in Hispanic Studies and Political Science. I went to law school at University of Miami, but I don't think it's, that you need a particular type of education to serve your community. I think any of us, regardless of our educational backgrounds, are certainly capable of serving our community. It's all about public service and just doing good for your community. In terms of time, 20 years, I don't think I've missed that many meetings other than for illness or maybe an activity that one of my children had, which I didn't want to miss. I certainly have the time, and as I said, I think I've served the community well, and I don't think it takes a particular type of educational background to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Askin.
Well, I owned and ran my own company for 25 years. We had many employees. It was a multi-million-dollar operation, so we knew how to have and control a budget, and how to stay profitable. I also, again, did the homeowners association. I was the president of one of the largest ladies' wear organizations in the United States, and we had 3,000 members there, and we had to run that operation, and the same thing. We had budgets, and we had spending, and you had to control it all. We had a list of, we had a group of not a council, but we had a group of members also that ran it, and I was president of that, and I was vice president of that. So I think I have learned leadership. I have time now that I'm no longer fully employed, working semi-retired. I will have the appropriate amount of time to put into the job.
Thank you.
Position. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morano.
I've been a legal assistant now for almost 20 years. I'm familiar with accountings. I've been a treasurer of my condo association for 15 years, so I can read numbers. I think maybe I've missed one or two committee meetings in the past 10 to 20 years of all the committees that I've been on. I'm able to multitask, and I've never had a problem with attendance.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sapper.
Yes, thank you. Bachelor of Science from Florida State University. I have an MBA from Hofstra University in Hempstead, New York. I'm a CPA for 30 years. I've always either been a partner in a firm or ran my own firm, and I'm lucky enough to be a partner with my son in the firm Salver & Salver CPAs. Now, the one thing I did not mention was the support that I get from my wife of 30 years as well, and she's wonderful. She's always supported me, and she says, sometimes she asks me, why do you do this? You have a full-time, well, it's more than a full-time job. I'm a CPA that runs a CPA firm, so it's an overtime job, but I don't think my attendance record is bad at all. I mean, I can't even remember the meetings that I missed in the past 5 or 10 years. Because I plan my schedule around Bay Harbor Island's meetings. But more than anything else, I think it's the 4 terms that I spent as councilman sitting here on this side of the dais uniquely qualified me to continue to lead the town. And it's the type of education that you get through the experience that you have sitting on the dais that enables an individual to effectively serve the people of Bay Harbor Islands.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chakoshy.
I'm Director of Account Management for a national billing company, but my background, I spent years working actually for a CPA firm. And what we did was, I was a junior accountant, and we took businesses apart and we put them back together. And we figured out ways that they were either creating desired results or that they were pushing desired results away. And I loved that whole tinkering fashion that happened. And that's what I do now. What I do now is I go into facilities and I basically mathematically quantify their behaviors. And I'm able to correlate those to the numbers that they have or don't have, and whether they're trending towards where they want to be or don't want to be. And I love that work.
Thank you. So that will conclude the questions that were posed by residents. Now we'll have 2 minutes each to do a closing statement. And we'll start with the same order that we started at the beginning. And we'll start with Mr. Eskin.
I would like to just go back for a moment to, we're talking about the quality of life issues. If you remember, several months ago, there was a lady on 995. She was driving, and her nephew was in the back, and he turned blue. She was able to pull over and save him because she had taken a CPR class. I thought that was very, very important. I brought it to town council. Council agreed to it, and along with the chief, I shepherded it through. And in fact, just the other night, we in fact had that CPR class, and about 15 people did attend. It was good because we had younger people with kids, and we had some seniors there also, and it really it did what I wanted it to do. We got some people to learn CPR. Also, since I've semi-retired and riding my bike more, going over from riding on our island, riding on the other island, I found that the physical equipment, the exercise equipment on the 92nd Street Park wasn't working. Annoying people enough. I got the town to have it fixed, so that all that equipment was now fixed appropriately. I brought to council that perhaps we should have that same equipment on the West Island in the Passive Park. That came to them, and we'll see what happens with that. Just going back to when they were talking about construction, I would like to say, when it comes to demolition sites, I would like to, if I have the chance, would like to legislate that developers must cover and wet down the different types of debris that may fly in the wind, especially walls, floors, ceilings, that may contain asbestos or lead. A lot of people are concerned that stuff flies around, so I would like to have that covered. Also, with all the new, many people have complained to me while I was going around about the complete lack of parking on the East Island. I would like to suggest the possibility or conversation of adding space to our existing lots by adding an additional level where necessary. I think we should be proactive again instead of reactive. Let's not wait until there's a tremendous problem, because people are complaining about it right now. I see it stopping. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eskin. Ms. Morano.
This is our final statement, right?
Yes, it will be your closing statement.
I just want to say that I feel that the council is lacking in looking out for our interests. They have, they have a different agenda than I do, and if you believe in what I believe, in change and quality of life, and giving the citizens back their voice, and making what's right for the citizens with the noise, with the overdevelopment, with thinking of the impact that their decisions make, even with P&Z and everything, and how it affects our life, the noise, the air quality, then you should vote for me. If you're happy with everything and the way things are, then you can still vote for me. And that's all. Thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Moreno. Mr. Salver?
Yes, thanks. I think, actually, Bob, I'm going to quote Bob tonight, said that, this council listens to the citizens. This council has evolved, and I'll give you a perfect example. When I first got on the council, I saw Mayor Linda Zilber, and she had a business card. And I said, Linda, that's cool, I want a business card too. She goes, I paid for this business card with my own money. Would you know, the next council meeting, I put on the agenda as a new councilman, we should have business cards. And that was the first recommendation that I made, that we get the business cards. After that, I made a recommendation that we get a town website. Then we eventually evolved into televising our meetings, and when I first got on the council, the only announcement that we had for meetings was a bulletin board inside Town Hall. Now we have a newsletter that gets distributed, we're on the web, we have a television channel. This council absolutely, positively listens to its citizens and reacts to its citizens. It's clear that I'm not only passionate about what I do up here, but I love what I do up here. And I think I have the educational background, the professional background, certainly the willingness to continue to serve the citizens of Bay Harbor Islands, and I would humbly ask for the citizens of Bay Harbor Islands to return me to the office of council member. So I know I have some extra time, Elizabeth. You can take it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salver. Mr. Coach?
I think about what motivations I have. And the motivations that I have are my children who go to school here, who I want to see how people treat other people and how they work collaboratively and how they feel about each other and how they communicate and how they treat each other. And I think that by doing that, by participating at this level, they get to see what that's like. And we get to be able to perpetrate that throughout our community and throughout what we do. And it's an important job. It's an important stewardship. And that is what makes me really want to participate here, is to be able to work every day to create that life for the children that are growing up here.
Thank you. Mr. Yaffe?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming this evening, to those of you who will be watching on TV and the Internet, and to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this candidate forum. I truly believe that members of the Town Council can't sit up here and make policy and adopt ordinances without taking into account the opinions of the people that we represent. And I'm proud of the efforts that I've made and that the Council has made over the years to represent the interests of the citizens. I've always made it clear from up here and, out in the community that if you have an issue that you would like to discuss in front of the council, let me know, let any other member of the council know, and we'll put it on the agenda. I put items on the agenda even if I don't agree with them, because I think it's important that in a community like Bay Harbor Islands, that you have you can knock on a door, you can email, call a member of the council, and discuss any issue that you want to discuss. Monday night's meeting, I think, was evidence of the fact that the council listens. We're adopting ordinances that take into account matters of great interest to people who live on the islands, with respect to noise and demolition and construction and so forth. So I think we've been effective that way. I think collegially, we've all, members of the council, for the most part, have worked together, even if we don't all agree on all of the issues. As the mayor, I've tried to encourage the council to reach consensus on issues. I think compromise is important. You know, we need to look out for the interests of all members of our community. And basically, I would, just ask for one of your 3 votes. You have 3 votes. You have a good range of candidates to choose from next Tuesday. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve on the town council for 20 years and to serve as the mayor of our town for 5 of those 20 years. I appreciate the confidence of the members of the community over these years and who have voted for me. And again, I ask for an opportunity to continue to serve you. And I thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters, we'd like to thank the village of Bay Harbor Islands for inviting us to yet another opportunity to provide this information to the residents. Thank you for those that are here this evening, those that are watching on TV, and we should come out and vote on Tuesday. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again in 2 years. Thank you.
Next year. We have elections every year.
We'll come back next year.
See you next year.